Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. About a year ago, I posted a tutorial for this chunky knit stocking, and I figured this year we were due for an upgrade. So today's video, we have a slightly larger chunky knit stocking with multiple colors. Let's get into the tutorial. What you're going to need for this project is 2 skeins of Bernat Blanket Big yarn or a similar jumbo chunky yarn. So I'm using the color Vintage and the color Rich Burgundy. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a lighter. Let's get started with our first row. As usual, we're beginning with a slip knot, and I'm making my slip knot about 2 finger widths in size, and the rest of my loops will be approximately that size as well. This is going to count as loop 1. We're going to do an additional 19 loops to make a total of 20 loops for the first row. So to make your second loop, you're going to reach in and pull out the yarn, making sure it's approximately 2 finger widths in size, looking the same. Let's just double check that we did get 20 loops. For the second row, we're going to be pulling new loops into our existing loops. So we'll start here at this end where we finished, and we're going to pull a loop up with our yarn into the existing loop, keeping it approximately 2 finger widths in size. And you'll be pulling loops into the tops of these loops in your first chain until we get to 20 at the end. This is what row 2 is looking like. If yours is also bent like this, don't freak out. After a few more rows, it's going to straighten out, so it's okay if you have a little bit of a curve to it. Let's double check that we got every loop and that we do have 20 loops in our second row. This row is generally where loops get missed, and then it'll mess up the rest of your project. All right, we have 20 loops. Now for my stocking, I wanted to do 2 rows of red, 1 row of white, 2 red, 1 white. So at this point, I'm going to be changing colors. If you're doing all the same color, you can just keep going and ignore this part. If you're changing colors like me, you're going to want to grab your second color at this point, and we're going to be attaching it right here where this loop has finished. So what we need to do to attach it is pull this loop out and cut at the point we want to attach. Now I'm taking my new color and I'm going to find that plastic cord that's in the middle here. You can actually see it a little bit better on this one. I'm going to find the plastic cord on each end and kind of push the fluff back so that I can expose that plastic cord. The plastic is going to melt together and make a seamless connection. So on any end, whichever one is most comfortable for you, you're going to light one end and then attach it to the other. Just hold it together for a little bit because it can be quite hot if you go touching it right away, but it generally cools down, I would say, in 10 to 15 seconds, and then you can just make sure that the 2 ends actually did connect. Now that they're securely attached together, we'll just go into this last loop where we pulled out the loop to attach the colors and pull it back into place. And now you can see back here that it very seamlessly allows you to start your next color. Let's get started now on our third row. We're going to be following the same method as our second row. We're just going to pull yarn up to make a new loop, keeping it about 2 finger widths in size. And we'll be doing that into each loop. So let's go ahead and pull up our new loops. right, we are finished row 3. Now I'm going to switch back to red so I can do another 2 rows of red. To switch colors, we're going to do the exact same technique. I'm going to pinch at the spot where I want my red to be connected and pull that loop out. Then cut where I want the white to end and the red to begin. So I'm going to light this end and then attach the red side. Now I have my red attached to my white, and I'm going to just go in here and pull up the white loop that was there before. And then we will be starting on row 4, pulling 20 loops this way. Row 4 is complete, so now it's time to move on to row 5, which is going to be the exact same thing, doing 20 loops in red. Rows 5, 6, and 7 are all 20 loops, so if you want to skip ahead to the timestamp that says row 8, you can go ahead and do that. Obviously, just keeping track of your own pattern and changing colors when you need to. Let's complete our 5th row, which is going to be 20 loops of this red color. We've got 7 rows done, and this is what we're looking like. Now to move on to row 8, we're going to do a decrease, and we're doing this because the toe of the stocking, we want it to be rounded. We're going to do a decrease on each end of the stocking. On this side, what we're going to do is cross the end loop over the second loop, and we're going to reach in, grab our working yarn, and pull up a new loop. So we've just made 2 loops into 1. So that's our first decrease. Then we're going to complete the rest of this row, and we're going to stop at the last 2 loops. Stopping just before the end here, we have 2 loops. On this end, we're actually going to take this loop over top of this one. So basically, whenever you're doing a decrease, you want the outside loop to go over top of the inside loop. We'll reach in, grab our working yarn, and pull up a loop. At this point, I would recommend counting and making sure that you're now at 18 loops. For row 9, we're switching over to white. So we're going to use the same technique. Even though here we did a decrease, it's still the same thing. So we're going to mark where we want the red to turn into white and pull it out. Then cut at the point and light one end. And then it's the same concept to get the red back in. We're going to do the outer loop over the inner loop to get that decrease again. And then pull so that the red loop is back in place. Now that the white is attached, we're going to start again by doing another decrease on this row. We are going to be decreasing to 16 loops in total. On this side, we're going to take the outer loop over top of the inner loop, reach in, and this time I'm grabbing my white yarn and pulling a loop up. I'm going to pull loops up as usual in the rest of the blanket, and then I'll stop and meet you at the last 2 loops to do our second decrease of the row. Now at these end loops again, we're going to put the outer loop over top of the inner loop, reach in and grab our white yarn. Now on to row 10, we're going to be doing our final decrease, which will be to 14 loops. But first I have to switch from white to red. We are doing a decrease again, so we'll take this outer loop over the inner loop and pull our red working yarn through. Then again, we're going to work into all these loops except the last two where we're doing another decrease. And our last decrease here, the outer white loop over the inner one and pull through to grab our red yarn and make a loop. The next 10 rows are going to be at 14 loops, and we're just going to be continuing the patterns. I'll be doing that from rows 11 until 20. This is what we're looking like after completing row 20. I'm sure you've realized that we're going to be folding it over and turning it into a stocking that way. But first we need to make the top of our stocking, which I'm going to do all in white. There's one very important thing we need to do before we start making the top of our stocking. What we're going to do is measure out approximately 4 lengths of our stocking. And this is going to leave you plenty of room at the end when we weave them together. So just trim that end off and then set it aside for later. This is where our color change is going to look a little bit different than it has before. We have been burning our ends together, and this time, because we had to leave this tail, we're going to do something similar and leave a little tail and then just start making loops that way. So I am going to be making 7 loops of the top of my stocking, so that is white. I'm going to be doing rows 21 through 28 in white. I've just completed 3 rows of white. I have 4 more to go, but something I'm going to do is as I keep going on my rows, I'm going to make my loops slightly bigger and bigger. So right now I've still got the 2 finger widths. I'm going to just make them a little bit bigger as I go so that when I get to the 7th row, they'll be quite a bit looser. The reason I'm doing that is because we're going to fold this stocking over, and this part is going to fold over. Because it's folding over so much chunky yarn, it can end up getting a little tight. I want it to be nice and uniform, so that's what I'm going to do to make sure that it lays nice and flat over the stocking when I fold it. I've reached the end of my 7 rows of white, so we're going to now complete the final closing row of the top of the stocking. What we're going to do is make a loop into the existing loop we have, and we're going to make it a little bit bigger than usual, about 3 finger widths in size. Then we are going to do a second loop, the same size, 3 finger widths, and we're going to take this first loop and put it over top of the second loop. Then you're going to keep doing the same thing. So into this loop here, we'll make a 3 finger loop and then take this one and put it over top. So I'm going to do that for the entirety of the top here, and I'll meet you at the end. I've reached the end, and what I'm going to do before I snip my yarn off is I'm going to measure out 4 lengths of the top part of the white here, just like I did with my red yarn. And that is to have enough yarn to weave it together when we close it off in the next step. So with this long tail, I'm going to just tie a knot at the top. Now for the best part, where the stocking actually becomes the stocking. So let's fold it in half. And we're going to turn it off to the side. And with this red tail, just keep that over here for a second. We're going to start with the white. We're going to close off the top here. So it's super simple. We're just going to find space on both sides of the stocking. And we're going to weave the yarn through, and we're going to just keep doing that, just finding space until we get to the point right here where the red meets the white. These two pieces I'm just going to leave for the moment. We're going to have to attach them together, but it's going to be easier when we can flip it. So let's get started on our red. We're going to do the same thing where we're reaching through on both sides of the red all along the way, and we're going to weave the sides together. Final finishing touches. This tail we're going to shove inside. And then same thing over here with these ones. We're going to shove them inside, and then we'll tie a knot on the inside so that we can't see it. So we'll go ahead and flip this and find our two pieces here. So let's tie a knot. And then we can simply just cut those ends. You'll just fluff this up and adjust it a little bit to whatever size you want. And then as the final step, we can add a little holder at the top here so that you can hang your stocking. And there we have it. The stocking is all complete and ready for the holidays. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to, leave a like and a comment down below. I'd love to know what colors you did for your stocking.